10 years ago, a lot of buyers moving to the Charlotte area would have started in South Charlotte and never looked anywhere else. Today, I'm seeing something very different. People still begin there. Then they keep searching. Waxaw ends up on the list. Weddington gets added. Matthews enters the conversation. Marvin starts getting attention. What's interesting is that most buyers never plan for that to happen. The question isn't whether South Charlotte is still desirable. It absolutely is. The real question is why so many buyers who thought they already knew where they wanted to live are expanding their search. By the way, if we haven't met, I'm Victoria. I help people moving to the Charlotte area figure out where they'll actually be happy living long after the move is over. Let's start with what South Charlotte used to represent. For a long time, it was the obvious answer. People wanted established neighborhoods. They wanted convenience. They wanted mature surroundings. They wanted a location that already had everything in place. South Charlotte delivered. In many ways, it still does. What changed wasn't the area. What changed was the number of alternatives buyers are now willing to consider. One of the biggest shifts I've noticed involves expectations. Years ago, a buyer might have been perfectly happy with a smaller lot if the location worked. Today, that same buyer often starts asking different questions. How much outdoor space do we have? How close are the neighboring houses? What does the property actually feel like when we're sitting outside? Could we use that extra room? The conversation starts moving beyond the address. That's where places like Waxaw and Weddington begin getting attention. Another factor is that many buyers arrive with outdated assumptions. Someone who visited Waxaw 15 years ago saw a very different place than the one that exists today. Matthews continues evolving. Marvin isn't viewed the same way it was years ago. Development changed. Communities matured. New options appeared. As a result, areas that once felt like secondary choices are now competing directly for attention. I see this happen all the time. A buyer schedules a day of showings. South Charlotte dominates the original plan. Then one extra stop gets added. Maybe it's Waxaw, perhaps it's Weddington, sometimes Matthews. The purpose is usually simple. Let's just take a look while we're here. Then something unexpected happens. The discussion in the car changes. Now they're comparing locations they weren't originally planning to compare. The search suddenly becomes much less predictable. What's fascinating is that different areas are attracting attention for completely different reasons. Matthews often enters the conversation because buyers appreciate how established it feels. Waxaw gets people thinking differently about what their budget can buy. Weddington creates a completely separate discussion around land, development patterns, and long-term scarcity. Marvin appeals to people who are searching for something they struggled to find elsewhere. Those are interchangeable conversations. Each area solves a different problem. That's why I think many buyers get stuck. They're trying to compare towns when they should be comparing priorities. A location isn't automatically better because somebody else recommended it. The right fit depends on what matters most to you. The challenge is that most people don't fully understand those priorities until they start touring homes. And that's when assumptions get tested. One thing I've learned after helping people relocate here is that the first area on someone's list rarely has a guaranteed path to the finish line. A search evolves, information changes, new discoveries happen. Sometimes the place that felt perfect online loses momentum in person. Occasionally the opposite happens. An area that barely registered by the beginning becomes the front runner by the end. That's part of the process. So when people ask me why more buyers are looking beyond South Charlotte, I don't think the answer is that South Charlotte became less desirable. The answer is that buyers become aware of more possibilities. And once those possibilities enter the conversation, many people realize they owe it to themselves to explore them before making a final decision. I'd love to know where your search started and whether that list has changed. Was South Charlotte your first choice? Have you added Waxaw, Matthews, Weddington, Marvin? Drop it in the comments and let me know. And if you're researching the Charlotte area, make sure you're subscribed because I create videos designed to help you understand what makes these communities different before you make a move. If you're planning a relocation, reach out. I'd love to help you figure out which area best fits your goals and what you're looking for in your next home.